Judy Garland, a life of adoration, empathy, and unseen torment. Judy Garland, a name that resonates with both adoration and empathy, continues to captivate audiences with her heart-wrenching songs and unforgettable screen performances. From her early portrayal of girl next-door innocence, a beacon of light in the somber 1930s, to her iconic role as Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz and the complex characters of her later career, her immense talent was undeniable. Yet, beneath her radiant smile and powerful voice lay a woman plagued by profound insecurity, a relentless yearning for maternal affection, and an arduous struggle against Hollywood's merciless dream machine. Early life and the relentless drive of Ethel Gumm. Born Frances Ethel Gumm in 1922 in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, Judy was the youngest of three daughters. Her vaudevillian parents, Frank and Ethel Gumm, operated a movie theater that also hosted live acts. By December 1924, a 2.5-year-old Frances transformed her older sister's duo into a trio with a captivating rendition of Jingle Bells. The family's time in Grand Rapids was cut short by rumors regarding Frank's excessive interest in young men, leading them to relocate to Lancaster, California, a hot, dusty desert town 60 miles north of Hollywood. There, they managed another picture house, and the girls continued to perform despite young Judy's occasional resistance. Her mother, Ethel, employed harsh encouragement, with Judy recalling threats of physical punishment if she didn't perform. Ethel's relentless ambition yielded results in 1928 when the Gumm sisters secured a regular slot on Los Angeles radio station KFI's Wednesday Kitty Hour. That same year, they enrolled in the Meglin Kitties, a renowned theater school and dance troupe where Ethel played piano to cover fees. The Gumm sisters performed with the Meglin Kitties at their Christmas show and made their film debut in a short song and dance number, followed by appearances in two Vitaphone shorts and Bubbles in 1930, where 8-year-old Frances Gumm showcased her prodigious talent. A troubled home life and a mother's coldness, Ethel Gumm's relentless ambition drove her daughters through the demanding vaudeville circuit, where their charm and synchronized performances earned acclaim. Yet, behind the curtain, Judy Garland's childhood was one of chaos and emotional neglect. She later recalled her parents' constant separations and reconciliations, saying the only time she ever felt wanted was when she was performing. Her father, Frank, loved his daughters deeply, but opposed Ethel's obsession with fame. Their clashes often ended with Ethel storming into Judy's room, dragging her from bed, and whisking her away on reckless nighttime drives. If Judy pleaded to stay with her father, Ethel would accuse her of not loving her. Terrified, Judy would sit in silence as her mother sped aimlessly through the dark, returning home only after hours or days spent hiding in cheap motels. Ethel's manipulative punishments left lasting scars. Instead of physical discipline, she weaponized abandonment, packing her bags and leaving without a word, forcing Judy to sit paralyzed with fear that she'd never return. When Ethel finally reappeared, Judy would weep with relief, only to be met with chilling indifference and the cruel warning that next time she might not come back. Life in Lancaster offered little comfort. Bored with her husband, Ethel began an affair with Will Gilmore, a volatile man who delighted in mocking the children. Judy once innocently discovered the pair together in an abandoned pump house, an image that haunted her for years. While other children played outside, Judy was confined indoors, forbidden from even swinging on a rope or trick-or-treating. Yet Ethel freely administered pep pills to keep her awake for shows and sleeping pills to quiet her afterward, long before Judy turned 10. To neighbors, Ethel's strictness was not love but control. Judy was not a daughter to nurture, but an investment to protect. From Gumm sisters to Garland sisters, the road to MGM, commuting into Los Angeles from Lancaster, did not offer the trio the best opportunities. Thus, in 1933, Ethel left Frank behind and rented an apartment in Silver Lake, enrolling the girls in the Hollywood Professional School. By 1934, the trio were polished professionals. Their mother drove them across the country to capitalize on the crowds at the Chicago World's Fair. They received their big break when added as a last-minute fill-in at the Oriental Theater, headlining with star George Jessel. Jessel adored the girls, especially Judy, whose voice was already far more mature than her 12 years. However, Giggles from the audience when they were introduced as the Gumm sisters prompted Jessel to rename them the Garland sisters, believing they looked prettier than a garland of flowers. This is one version of how Frances Gumm became Judy Garland. Other theories exist, including the popular anecdote that the change was made after they were billed as the Glum sisters. Their final appearance together was in a Technicolor short before the group disbanded in August 1935. Following eldest sister Suzanne's marriage, the Garland sisters had garnered significant press coverage, and in September 1935, Judy was summoned to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM Studios in Culver City for an audition with lyricist and assistant producer Arthur Freed. The events of that day have become legendary, but her opening song was powerful enough to draw MGM's Supremo, Louis B. Mayer, himself out to the soundstage. Mayer, a notoriously difficult man to impress, was decisive when he liked something, and Judy was immediately offered a 7-year contract. MGM's Little Hunchback and the rise to stardom. At just 13, Judy Garland found herself trapped between worlds, too old to play a child and too young to be cast as a plain woman. When MGM signed her in 1935, the studio didn't quite know what to do with her. Barely 5 feet tall, round-faced, and far from the glamorous ideal embodied by her classmates Ava Gardner, Lana Turner, and Elizabeth Taylor, she was viewed as an odd fit. Studio head Louis B. Mayer cruelly referred to her as his little hunchback, a comment that would haunt her for years. At first, MGM kept Judy on the sidelines, parading her through publicity events rather than films. Her big break came when she sang on The Shell Shadow Hour in October 1935. The audience was enchanted, but tragedy struck soon after her beloved father, Frank Gumm, was hospitalized with meningitis. Judy performed Zing, Went the Strings of My Heart through tears, dedicating the song to him. He died the next morning. His death shattered her. He had been her one safe harbor in a turbulent home. "It was the most terrible thing that ever happened to me," she later said. Soon after, MGM cast her, and in Every Sunday opposite Deanna Durbin, essentially a studio experiment to decide which girl to keep. Judy won. She followed with Pigskin Parade and Broadway Melody of 1938, where her heartfelt rendition of You Made Me Love You made her a sensation. Then came the Andy Hardy films with Mickey Rooney, which catapulted her to fame but also deeper into MGM's control. The studio dictated her clothes, diet, and even friends. She was allowed only chicken soup and cottage cheese, forbidden sweets, and constantly mocked for her figure. Executives made her stand beside a mannequin to drive home their cruel, "Do you want to look like that or be a star?" ultimatum. Though Judy's charm and voice captivated the world, MGM's relentless scrutiny warped her self-image. Behind the radiant performances lay a young girl who never felt beautiful enough, thin enough, or worthy enough scars she carried for the rest of her life. The uppers and downers and the loss of youth. MGM's obsession with productivity and profit led to one of Hollywood's darkest practices, drugging its young stars to keep them performing. Judy Garland's transformation from a talented teenager into a global icon was not powered by natural stamina, but by a chemically sustained routine that blurred the line between medicine and exploitation. To maximize their investment, the studio administered amphetamines to keep her alert during endless filming days, followed by barbiturates to force her to sleep during what little rest she was allowed. This toxic cycle, pep pills to wake up and sleepers to shut down, became the foundation of her adult struggles. The shocking part wasn't only MGM's complicity, but also her mother's compliance. Ethel Garland, once the driving force behind Judy's early career, fully cooperated with the regimen. To modern readers, this feels unthinkable. Yet in the 1930s, Benzedrine was as common as aspirin. Sold freely in pharmacies, it was. Promoted as a wonder drug to boost focus and stamina, later even distributed to millions of soldiers during World War II. Few understood its addictive potential, and by the time Judy's dependency formed, the damage was irreversible. Judy later described her workdays as a cycle of exhaustion and chemical stimulation. "They had us working days and nights on end," she recalled. "They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet, then knock us out with sleeping pills." Mickey sprawled out on one bed and me on another. Mickey Rooney, her frequent co-star, denied the studio's direct role, But Judy's testimony and her lifelong addiction tell a more tragic truth. By 1938, her daily routine began with schooling, followed by hours of vocal rehearsal, choreography, and filming that often stretched past 4 a.m. There was no time for rest, friendship, or adolescence. Each day ended not with dreams, but with drug-induced sleep, REM suppressed, her mind deprived of restoration. In the name of stardom, the studio had systematically dismantled her childhood and programmed a cycle of chemical dependence that would shadow her until her untimely death. Personal life amidst stardom, early relationships, and marriage. However, she did manage to carve out some free time for herself, at least according to biographer Gerald Clark, who writes that by 15, Judy was doing a little more than just holding hands with the young men she was meeting. Buddy Pepper was one of the first. Another was Frankie Darro, and according to Clark, on occasion, she was almost breathtakingly bold and aggressive. Although he doesn't provide more details or declare his sources, he points out that the teenage Judy was no different from many other young Hollywood stars who began adult life early, emulating their elders for whom sex was simply a commodity. Stardom did have its perks. At 16, she was able to commission renowned architect Walter Neff to design her a purpose-built home in Bel Air, 1231 Stone Canyon Road, a 5-bedroom house set on 2.6 acres with a pool and tennis court, where she lived with her mother, grandmother, and sister Virginia. The icon, the Wizard of Oz. Judy Garland's rise to superstardom reached its defining moment in 1939, when she slipped into the ruby red slippers and became Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. Though destined to be her signature role, she nearly lost it to two other rising stars, Shirley Temple and Deanna Durbin. MGM ultimately chose Judy for her vocal depth and emotional authenticity, qualities far beyond her 16 years. Initially, the studio tried to mold her appearance to fit their image of a storybook child, even testing her in a blonde wig before abandoning the idea. Her now iconic blue gingham dress was intentionally designed to disguise her developing figure and make her appear younger. Filming began in October 1938 and stretched over 5 grueling months, costing an unprecedented $2 million. Despite the film's whimsy, the experience for Judy was anything but magical. She worked long hours under the same punishing schedule and pill regimen that had already begun to take a toll on her body and mind. As soon as production wrapped, she was immediately pushed into another film with Mickey Rooney, with no time to rest or even process the experience. When The Wizard of Oz premiered in August 1939, it received widespread praise, with the New York Times calling Judy a pert and fresh-faced miss with the wonder-lit eyes of a believer in fairy tales. Variety predicted box office success, while The New Yorker famously and laughably dismissed it as a stinkeroo. Initially, it wasn't a massive financial hit, barely breaking even, but it went on to win Oscars for Best Score and Best Song and earned Judy a Special Academy Juvenile Award. The film's endurance lies in the timeless hope embodied in Over the Rainbow, Judy's tender plea for a better world. Knowing now the hardship and sadness that would later define her life, the song resonates as both haunting and prophetic. After the film's release, the relentless pace continued. MGM sent her on an exhausting promotional tour with Mickey Rooney, performing up to 7 shows a day at New York's Capitol Theater. At one point, Judy collapsed backstage from sheer fatigue, forcing Rooney to entertain the crowd alone while she recovered. It was a moment symbolic of her entire career, driven to perfection, celebrated by millions, yet privately breaking under the weight of her own success. War, family intrusions, and further relationships. Just 6 days after The Wizard of Oz premiered in August 1939, the world was thrown into chaos as Adolf Hitler invaded Poland. While much of the globe braced for war, Hollywood carried on with business as usual, and Judy Garland, now a box office powerhouse, was worked harder than ever. Her grueling schedule at MGM continued without pause, while her personal life grew increasingly complicated. At home, Judy's domineering mother, Ethel, was still exerting control. In November 1939, exactly 4 years after the death of Judy's beloved father, Ethel secretly married her longtime lover, Will Gilmore, crossing the state line to Yuma for a quick, unannounced ceremony. Judy and her sisters found out only after the fact. Gilmore, disliked by nearly everyone, wasted no time announcing that he would be taking over the family's finances, including Judy's considerable earnings. Thankfully, Ethel drew the line there, preventing him from accessing her daughter's fortune. Professionally, Judy continued starring in MGM's hit backyard musicals with Mickey Rooney, including Strike Up the Band, and later her first adult role in Little Nellie Kelly, a performance that included her first on-screen kiss. Off-screen, she was beginning to experience the emotional turbulence of young love. She fell deeply for pianist and actor Oscar Levant, then became infatuated with the charismatic bandleader Artie Shaw. When Shaw suddenly eloped with Lana Turner, Judy was crushed, though. In hindsight, it may have been a blessing. Turner later revealed that Shaw was emotionally abusive, their 4-month marriage leaving her on the verge of a breakdown. Judy next found solace in songwriter Johnny Mercer before meeting David Rose, a quiet, older composer whose calm demeanor and lack of Hollywood flash attracted her precisely because it contrasted with the chaos of her world. On her 18th birthday, he gave her a ring, and despite the studio's protests, Rose was still married at the time. Judy defied everyone. In July 1941, in the middle of filming Babes on Broadway, she impulsively flew to Las Vegas and married him at 1 a.m., then returned to work the next day as if nothing had happened. Her defiance marked a turning point. She was no longer the compliant child MGM could mold at will, yet her rebellion brought new heartbreak. Pregnancy soon followed, but instead of joy, Judy faced cold calculation. Her mother and the studio arranged for a secret abortion, insisting her career could not afford such complications. Ethel reportedly reassured her, "You can have lots of babies, but not now." David Rose, unwilling to challenge the decision, meekly complied. That moment broke something in Judy. The man she thought would protect her had chosen silence, and the marriage soon disintegrated. By 1943, at just 21, Judy Garland, already one of Hollywood's biggest stars, had endured her first marriage, her first heartbreak, and her first deep betrayal. New image, psychoanalysis, and the Judy Garland machine. Regardless of what personal upheavals she may have been having, the Judy Garland machine was kept running by the studio. 3 movies were released in 1941, averaging profits of $2 million each. 1942 was a bit of a lean year with just one release, For Me and My Gal. But the studio realized they couldn't go on forever keeping her a child and needed to find a new image. It was time to glam her up and give her the Hollywood treatment, trying her in some different roles. There were 3 more films in 1943, including Girl Crazy, an adaptation of a George and Ira Gershwin Broadway stage musical. 1943 was also a busy year in her personal life. Still married to Rose, she embarked on an affair with director Joseph Mankiewicz, a passionate advocate of psychoanalysis. He introduced her to Carl Menninger, a leading U.S. analyst, who suggested she spend a year at his hospital in Kansas to sort out her issues. She was never going to be able to get a year off, so Menninger suggested daily sessions with a local therapist instead. He recommended Ernst Zimmel, a respected German psychiatrist who knew Freud personally and had treated Princess Alice, the grandmother of Charles III, at his Berlin sanatorium in 1930. Zimmel had fled to America when the Nazis came to power and soon developed a busy practice catering to the troubled minds of Hollywood. With Mankiewicz's encouragement, Judy began seeing him every morning for an hour before filming, and he started to ask dangerous questions about what she wanted out of life. Horrified, her mother began to notice a new air of defiance and rushed over to see Louis B. Mayer to demand something be done. Together, they did their best to stop Mankiewicz from encouraging her in such nonsense. Despite all of their machinations, and much to their annoyance, she continued seeing both Mankiewicz and Zimmel. But in the end, she felt Zimmel was just another authority figure telling her what to do, and she started missing sessions and then not being honest with him, and it all fizzled out, having achieved very little. But the danger was over as far as the studio was concerned. Their precious commodity was back under their control. She moved on to have an affair with actor Tyrone Power and became pregnant again. And again, it was not convenient and was dealt with by her mother, but she was so busy with her unrelenting schedule there was no time to dwell on anything. Benzedrine kept her awake, and barbiturates sent her to sleep. Garland's career was dominated by the merciless demands to maintain her star status. The expectation to deliver one box office hit after another meant that she was constantly under the spotlight, with little respite from the public eye. This intense scrutiny was not limited to her professional life, but extended into her personal life as well, where her relationships and what should have been private struggles became fodder for the media, always hungry for more. The pressure to perform at this high level, to constantly reinvent herself while still staying true to the unaffected, innocent persona that the world adored, took a significant toll on her emotional well-being. It wasn't right. Someone, somewhere, must have known that. But film after film, Judy Garland kept bringing in the profits, so no one was going to change anything. War Effort, Vincente Minnelli, and Meet Me in Street. Louis, 1943, was also the year Judy Garland did her bit for the war effort, performing at a huge sellout concert in Philadelphia in June, and then completing a month-long tour of military bases in September. She was on the road again with the Hollywood Cavalcade, a train full of Tinseltown's finest that crisscrossed the country to promote war bonds. But she couldn't stay away from Hollywood forever, and at the end of 1943, production began on a movie Judy wasn't that keen on, Meet Me in Street. Louis, directed by experienced theater man but Hollywood newcomer Vincente Minnelli. He had worked on sequences of some of Garland's other movies but didn't have many solo director credits to his name at this point. Filming was far from easy. Judy was unhappy with the script, worried about being upstaged by Margaret O'Brien, and unsure of herself as a leading lady. Her amphetamine use was getting out of control, and there were numerous delays. 16 days of illness with headaches and an ear infection, and even when she did turn up, she was often late, 4 hours late at times, keeping the entire crew and her fellow actors hanging around in full costume while she got herself ready. It wasn't the first time she'd been a bit of a diva, but what had been occasional was becoming the norm, and people were beginning to lose patience. The film ended up behind schedule and over budget. Watching it again while making this documentary, you wouldn't know that any of this was going on behind the scenes. It's a lovely, old-fashioned movie with Judy at her radiant and heartwarming best. One of the positives that came out of it was the assistance of makeup artist Dorothy being assigned to the reluctant actress by Minnelli. Padel refined her appearance by extending and reshaping her eyebrows, changing her hairline, modifying her lip line, and removing her nose discs and dental caps. Judy loved the changes and made sure Padel was written into her contract for all her remaining pictures at MGM. What she was less keen on was Minnelli's meticulously planned approach, with lots of pre-production rehearsals and recording sessions months before filming began, and she was late for most of these. Once the film got going, however, and she saw the daily rushes, she warmed to him a lot, and they became lovers and moved in together during post-production. But her life was always complicated. She was still married to Rose at this point, who delayed agreeing to a divorce, and still involved with Joseph Mankiewicz. She even had a fling with Orson Welles, so the relationship with Minnelli had to go on ice for a while. Despite her misgivings, the movie was a major hit with both critics and the public, becoming MGM's most successful musical of the 1940s. Next, she took on her first non-musical dramatic role in The Clock. There was little chemistry between her and the original director, Fred Zinnemann. So, at her suggestion, he was replaced by Minnelli, and their relationship was back on. He discarded most of the footage already completed, revised the script, and changed the look of the film. Judy's addiction was escalating, and her co-star, Robert Walker, after discovering his wife was having an affair, was also struggling. Garland would often find him drunk in a bar and then sober him up through the night so he could appear before cameras the next day. The movie received critical praise, with lots of positive comments on Garland's transformation into a mature actress, but audiences missed her singing. Marriage to Minnelli, motherhood, and postpartum struggles. The first half of 1945 was taken up with filming the big-budget movie, The Harvey Girls. But in June, a month after victory in Europe, Judy, now 22, married Vincente Minnelli, 20 years her senior. The studio approved, and Louis B. Mayer even gave her away at the wedding. And the happy couple were granted a 3-month honeymoon. They rented a penthouse in New York, which was buzzing with celebrations and victory parades for VE Day, and in August, VJ Day. They went to the theater, visited museums, and for the first time in a decade, her life was her own. She got on top of her addiction and ceremoniously dumped a bottle of her pills into the Hudson, promising Minnelli she was a reformed character. By September, she was pregnant, and this time there were congratulations. It didn't stop MGM from squeezing another movie out of her before she showed, however. Till the Clouds Roll By is a biopic of Jerome Kern, but more an opportunity for the studio singers to showcase their talents. Clever lighting meant that you would hardly know that Judy was just a few months off delivering. In March 1946, her daughter, Liza Minnelli, was born by cesarean section at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Judy and Vincente were ecstatic, and Judy declared she would be back at work in a month. However, it took a long time for her to get over the birth. She tried to go out for a walk but collapsed on the pavement, and her doctor ordered her back on bed rest. It has been speculated that she had postpartum depression after the birth, and in 1946, there were no specific antidepressant medications. There was ECT, which had been pioneered a decade before in Italy by Cerletti and Bini, and there was amphetamine, 1 million tablets of which were swallowed every day by Americans at this time. When Judy threw her pills into the Hudson the year before, she had vowed to stay off them for good, and she managed this successfully throughout the pregnancy. Whether she restarted them as a treatment for depression or not, we don't know, but we do know that she had a tough time in the first 6 months of Liza's life, despite the smiles for the cameras. So far, Judy's life had seemed almost charmed on the surface. At least, she had talent, fame, and a world that adored her. Yet every curtain call came with a cost. Behind the laughter and applause was a fragile young woman struggling to hold herself together, paying for every bit of glamour with sleepless nights and silent tears. For a while, she managed to keep control to balance the pressure, the perfection, and the pain. But that fragile balance was slipping fast. There were still dazzling highs ahead, children she adored, stages that roared with her name, awards that sparkled brighter than the spotlight. But the lows in between would cut deeper, and the dream that began with a girl singing under a rainbow would turn into one of Hollywood's most haunting stories. Judy Garland's life reminds us that even the brightest stars can burn themselves out trying to light up the world. If her story moved you, share it, leave a comment, and hit the like button to keep her legacy alive. Because behind every legend, there's a truth the world needs to hear, and Judy's truth deserves to be remembered.